Welcome back to Leadership Unscripted. If your best employees quit, don't blame the market. Great employees don't usually leave because they found a slightly higher wage. They leave because leadership slowly convinced them they weren't valued. So again, you can't blame the market. It's because they're losing trust in you and they're feeling they're undervalued. In episode 17, which is today, we're going to talk about the 5 fastest ways to lose your best operators, your best machinists, your best maintenance techs, your best engineers. If you want weekly shop floor leadership advice, subscribe and like this video and you will receive it every week. One thing to mention, replacing an inexperienced shop floor employee is not easy. And you think about that shop floor employee, whether it's machinist, molding press operator, assembly technician, electronic technician, whatever it is, that experienced employee is not easy to replace. You can think about the amount, if it's a 10-year employee, you think about the amount of knowledge that person has. If they're running a machine, they understand the sounds that the machine makes. They know when to make adjustments that no one else knows. They understand when problems might arise. They fix the issues. Before they arise, you don't even know about the issues that actually happen on the shop floor and all of the issues that are being fixed because you have those experienced people that feel valued, feel engaged, and they want to help. But when they start feeling undervalued, they're starting to look elsewhere. And it's not because of a slightly higher wage. They may even leave for a similar wage or even a slightly lower wage with an opportunity to feel more engaged. So it's really important that you're always assessing that. So let's go through a few points. Number 1, constant overtime. Constant overtime can cause strain on an employee. You have employees understand you've got machine breakdowns, you have a large customer order that came in which we have to meet. There's many different reasons that you have overtime and it comes and goes. But when you're always relying on your best employees to do the overtime because you rely on them so much, that's where you run into issues. You have all of your junior operators, but you're always relying on your senior operators, and you're not sort of spreading the overtime around to make sure that you're not overworking people. Yes, there are people that love overtime and they want it, and you have to know who those people are and who those people aren't, so that you're not risking losing some of your good employees. How to get rid of backlog. When we talk about overtime, how do you get rid of backlog? Well, it's about looking at the things that are causing your schedules to be behind schedule. You have various issues, maintenance issues. Does your maintenance department have a good root cause corrective action? Are they Paretoing the various issues that are arising? Do they have good preventative maintenance on the equipment? If you're seeing repeat things, you need to start pushing this up the line to bring it up with your general manager or the maintenance manager or whoever's in charge to help deal with those backlog issues. But how do you move away from overtime in general? So you've got, as we mentioned, the machine breakdowns, improving your schedules. So are your standards correct? So we talked about machine breakdowns, looking at that aspect. Are your standards correct on your time? So if you're saying this part runs 3 parts per hour and it's always running half a part per hour, well, your schedules are off, and if that's the realistic cycle time, well, you need to go back to your engineering team and say, hey, we need to update the Sanser, and you're probably going to have to quote this differently the next time the customer orders this, so we're not losing money. But from the production point of view, from the overtime point of view, getting that standard updated is going to help your schedule become more realistic, so that it's not always going to look like you're behind intentionally, but you're behind against correct standard. So that's another important thing to deal with when you're constantly running overtime. Are you staffed properly? If you're bringing in all sorts of people on a weekend shift every single weekend, why don't you look at a small weekend shift? So hiring a supervisor, maybe there's somebody that wants to do a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, a 12-hour shift, and you pay them 4 hours as a premium for the shift. So they get their 40 hours. And then you move a couple of people on the weekend shift. Now they're able to cover a bit of what's generally running as overtime, and you're able to reduce some of your overtime additionally, and also reduce costs for your company. Number 2, ignoring their ideas. Experienced operators know where the waste exists, which fixtures need improvement, which programs can have the cycle time reduced. They know all of this. If no one listens to their ideas, then they become disengaged. How do you move away from a backlog of ideas? So if you have a continuous improvement system and you're collecting all sorts of ideas, it's really, really important that you look at your backlog. And if you've got a massive backlog, you got 500 ideas in there and they haven't been touched for a year and a half, well, start moving in the right direction. Pick the low-hanging fruit. Maybe start with the oldest ones. See if there's anything that's simple, you purchasing a tool or a shadow graph, shadow board for a certain area to hang their tools. Maybe there's a rag bin or a garbage bin or whatever. Pick some of those low-hanging fruit, get those 10 items complete, go communicate, provide feedback to the employees that you close those off, even if they were 2 years old. Who cares? It's a start in the right direction, because it's showing them that you want to change the culture, you want to listen to their ideas, and you're willing to work at it one idea at a time, slowly burning down the backlog, and that allows them to be re-engaged. Number 3, no opportunity to grow. Top performers like challenge, learning new things, new programs, mentoring others, taking on extra roles. How do you give opportunities for new opportunities, new challenges for your senior employees? Well, let's say your hands are tied and you can't hire any further. One thing that I do is I currently work within a machining environment, machining and assembly environment, but we have a setup technician role, a junior setup technician, and then a machine operator. So if I don't have the ability to hire additional junior setup technicians, I will allow somebody from the machine operator role to train as a junior setup technician. And so they're more engaged. Maybe they're coming in 2 hours early to cross-train with somebody else, and they're slowly learning. So, okay, they're fine that they're not a junior technician, but they know that they're learning and they want to learn. And then perhaps in 3 to 6 months, I finally get approval to hire for the position. Well, I already have somebody trained, they're engaged, and then they move up. And then you do that again with maybe in a different department, maybe in your milling or your molding or your assembly department, your manual machining, deburring, wherever it is. But create those positions of opportunity even before the opportunity ever arises, and that keeps people engaged. And not only are you engaging that person, but you're engaging probably 10 other people that are looking at that person get the opportunity. So that's where the value is. It's not just that one person, it's the 10 additional people that are watching, thinking they may have an opportunity, they're going to stay around a little longer. Number 4, taking them for granted. Reliable employees become invisible. All attention goes on weak performers. The highest contributors are forgotten. And that typically happens. It happens in my case quite often, and then I come to a realization, I start focusing back on them. There's a cycle to it. It's always trying to be aware of what's going on. But it's important that, okay, try to create some succession plans, for those higher contributors. And succession plans could be some additional programming training, or learning a partial new role, but actually documenting your succession plan. So if you want to engage 10 people of your employee base of 100, well, that's 10%. That's pretty good. And come up with a training plan. Maybe there's some online training or different things that you can do, or having them job shadow 4 hours a week with an engineer. That's another method. And then actually making it happen, and not thinking that it's going to happen forever, but having completion timelines. So instead of saying, okay, you're going to go train with an engineer once a week for 4 hours, say, okay, the plan is you're going to train with an engineer 4 hours a week for 12 weeks, and then that's done. And therefore you've said what you're going to do. Because if you say you're going to do this and it's open-ended, and then it stops at some point, they're going to get disengaged and not enjoy the process. So always have completion dates on any training or succession plans. Number 5, allowing poor performers to continue. As I've talked in previous videos, we have to deal with the bottom as well, the poor performers, the people with the attendance, with punctuality, with attitude, people that just don't care, who don't follow work instructions. We have to deal with those people. You got 100 people, pick your 10, pick your 3 lowest people. You know what? I guarantee the 3 people that classify under many of these categories are probably already known by everybody in the company. Pick those bottom 3 performers, the weaker performers in attitude, attendance, punctuality, and just not following direction, not pulling their weight. Focus strictly on those 3 people. Run a personal improvement program over 3 months. Come up with some timelines, meet with them weekly, and say, these are the tasks that, if it's somebody with bad attendance, meet with them weekly and say, okay, last week you missed 0 days. Excellent. Good job. Meet with them the next week. Last week you missed 1 day. We need to see improve. Next week, you go meet with them again. And if you see a progression getting better, excellent. After the 3 months, if everything's kosher and good, then you've generally turned that person around. If it's not, if they have horrible attitude and that's what you're trying to deal with, and it's not getting better, well, then you probably need to look at an exit plan for that person. You take out one person, you're going to re-engage a lot of people just with one person. So focus on a couple of the bottom feeders that are sucking the energy out of everybody else. Do you have any examples where you've conducted sort of like a personal improvement program on somebody? Put some notes in the comments just to give some advice to other listeners, and as well as myself, and it might create some additional conversation around what other advice others have in the same types of scenarios and how they can deal with improving their bottom feeders. In the next episode, we'll talk about the most dangerous warning sign when employees stop bringing problems to managers. When you stop seeing that your engaged people are not complaining to you, are not frustrated anymore.